session. We'll just start in a couple of minutes, just waiting for everyone to join. So I guess we can start. India's tax system is the backbone of our economy, but is it fair to everyone? From heavy tax load businesses bear to the everyday struggles of the common man, it raises important questions about justice, efficiency, and inclusion. Today, we're excited to bring together a panel of experts to bring it all down. Together, we'll explore the challenges, unpack possible reforms, and discuss how we can move toward a tax system that works better for everyone. So, since this issue today pertains to everyone in the country, to all citizens, we've tried to make the panel more diverse. So, we have on the panel Advocate Devendra Singh, an authority in criminal law, civil disputes, and arbitration with over 4 years of experience in India's top courts and tribunals. We also have Anurag, who is our in house product lead. We have Advocate Ambuj Tiwari, who is our in house lawyer. So, before we begin the discussion, I would like to start today's session by showing you a video about Rest the Case.
In a world where time is precious, getting swift access to legal help shouldn't be a privilege, but a right. Welcome to Rest the Case, India's most trusted online platform for legal solutions. We are transforming the legal tech landscape, bridging gaps, and bringing legal support to anyone, anywhere, at any time. The legal field in India can be overwhelming. Courts are crowded, the search for the right legal help is confusing, and legal fees can be unpredictable. Many litigants face trust issues, uncertain about finding a lawyer who truly understands their needs. Rest the Case solves this by providing verified lawyer profiles, making it easier than ever to find trusted legal support.
We all are aware of that lawyers are not allowed to advertise themselves, right? But again, they do need something else going on from their routine practice, just so that there are people who actually know about them, so that they can reach out to them without any hassle and easily.
That's where Rest the Case steps in. From consultations to document drafting and court representation, our digital platform brings legal expertise to your fingertips.
The legal ecosystem is a triangle: judiciary, litigant, and the lawyer. But we are touching the litigants, both B2C, retail, and B2B corporates, and the lawyers. So our tools will make life simpler for litigants, retail, by helping them reach the right lawyers. We are using GenAI, we are creating an improved matching system. And for B2B, which is for startups and mid-level corporates, we are helping them by doing tasks like document draft creation, also other aspects which relates to their internal process improvement.
Powered by cutting-edge technology, our platform leverages AI to match users with the most suitable lawyers. Based on expertise and location, from its start, Rest the Case has grown rapidly. With a presence across India, our mission is to provide legal accessibility everywhere, from big cities to smaller towns.
Our vision is to make legal support accessible and affordable for everyone in India. Our journey began in the lockdown, where suddenly people did not know what to do or where to find the right legal support. We then realized that this is not just a pandemic issue. This is an issue that people face every day and everywhere. That's how Rest the Case was born. We bridged the gap between a lawyer and a client to give them a reliable place to find the right legal help.
Rest the Case, because every case deserves the right support.
Thank you for watching the video. We can start with the discussion now. So my first question would be to you, Advocate Devinder. How do the new income tax slabs and increased standard deductions affect middle income earners compared to high income earners?
First of all, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to join everyone today for this discussion. Now, getting back to the question, see, we have to understand that when we talk about new tax regime and the slabs they have made, we have to take in account first the sector of the society which is not falling in such slabs. We can talk about people who are falling under the below poverty line, people basically low daily wage earners, या जो दिहाड़ी पे काम कर रहे हैं, they are not having a proper income, they are not salaried. First, we have to acknowledge that we are living in a society which also has people belonging from that sector. Once we move on ahead, we have people from the middle income sector and the high income sector. Now, the change which has come up with the new regime, there is a lot of benefit for the middle income sector because they have created new slabs where the subsidized policies have changed and people have better and fewer percentage of tax which is being imposed upon them as that of the financial year belonging to 23-24, and the same is benefiting them in a lot of ways. If I'm earning a particular amount, let's see, if I'm making 100 rupees and I'm paying a tax of 10 rupees on that, then my disposable income is only 90 rupees. But if that tax rate comes down to 5 rupees, I'm saving 5 rupees extra. Now that is my disposable income which I can invest. Now investment can be of various types. I can invest into mutual funds, which is the most common kind of investment we are looking at these days, whether it be stock market, whether it be properties. But our income taxes which are being imposed, we have to make sure that not only the disposable income is being increased, but the tax which we are paying on capital gains also needs to be subsidized so that we can use that money which we are saving. We are not paying over taxes on that. However, similarly, for the people who are in the higher part of the economic society, the new tax regime is not at all beneficial for them, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Would any other panelists like to add to this? Anurag or Advocate Ambuj?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So I think, see, I feel that the new tax regime, what it has done is it has made it easier for us to understand our taxes. However, I don't think it is beneficial still because, like Advocate Singh just said, like we are already paying income tax, and then if we are investing, the you're also taxing our investments now, and that too not even like if someone is investing short term and that is being taxed, that's all right, but you've added long term capital gains, and then you've removed the benefits of inflation that you used to get before, right? So then, see, it's making it simpler is all right, and still filing tax by itself is not simple. So understanding tax, okay, you've reduced the slabs, that's all right, I can understand it better. Okay, if I'm beyond this income, then I pay this much. So what that has done is that has just, I think I disagree just on one thing, that I think it is difficult for middle earners as well. uh, the taxes are very high for middle earners as well, and for what we get, I would say, because I'm not trying to say bad things about India per se, but we all love our country, but it's just that in terms of taxes, if tomorrow I have to go to a doctor, I am on my own, I have to get a private treatment. If I don't have an insurance, right, I'm paying for the insurance and then paying indirect taxes on that insurance as well, and then paying income tax, and then paying uh, on tax on my invested money, which is already has been invested on uh, taxed money, right? My income is taxed, and then what I invest, that is also taxed. So then it becomes very difficult. It doesn't remain beneficial for anyone apart from individuals who get benefits from all the government schemes. Now, I'm also not against the government schemes. A lot of people try to say things like freebies, and a lot of people try to say things like we should not give things for free. I understand that a certain section of the society needs to be uplifted, but that wo- that upliftment has to come from education. That upliftment has to come from giving them skills and not directly giving them money, which I am kind of against. So yeah, I think the tax slab has made it easier for us to understand, but the tax itself, the taxation system is still has a far distance to travel in India.
I'll
Okay, thank
agree to that. I'll agree to that. My basic point was that the benefit is because of the tax slabs, not because of the tax you're paying on capital gains. Even I criticize that, because if I'm taking home 10 rupees extra as the disposable income, I don't want to invest that 10 rupee and pay another 5 rupee tax on it. Because if I'm doing that, I return back to the same old tax regime where I'm saving the disposable income and paying tax on the capital gains I'm receiving from that. I
Uh,
criticize that also.
So, Advocate
Uh,
Devendra, I would like to ask you, with the introduction of the new tax regime, where there are different tax slabs, how should you choose between the old tax regime and the new tax regime? What do you
See,
think?
you have to be very particular about it. You have to take in account the old tax regime and the new tax regime. You have to make a proper layout, a proper planning has to be done on paper, that what is the amount of disposable income which is being generated extra from the previous tax regime. You have to calculate it, how you wish to invest it, and what are the capital gains you're going to pay for it. Or you might not be investing that money, but what was the aggregate income you were generating in the previous tax regime and the current tax regime. You have to multiply, you have to take in account the whole mathematics of it to derive the actual income which will be coming into your hand. Now, because with the new tax regime, a lot of subsidies are being taken away, whether it be house rent allowance, whether it be section 80C of the income tax act. All these things have been taken away in the new tax regime, whereas we had all of these in the previous tax regime. That has also to be taken into account.
Right. Okay.
um,
So
yeah,
I think Ambuj has something to say. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
thank you. So, I totally agree with Advocate Devinder, and but I would say more agree with Anurag is that even though this tax regime seems to enhance our disposable income, but ultimately, as Anurag said, we end up paying tax in some or the other manner, right? So the basic, I would say, strategy which I came to and see after the difference in tax regime is that government is no doubt increasing our disposable income, but that boosts the consumer's spending. So ultimately, we are spending more because we see that our disposable income is more now, and it amounts to the same, I think, strategy where we end up paying the tax sometimes more. And as Advocate Devendra was saying that, yes, before deciding, it is really important to see the structure. We cannot just decide if we see uh, new tax regime as providing me more disposable income, so I would go with it. That is, I think, if you're going by that, then you might be in a trap because maybe it is providing one con, but there are other. Maybe it's providing one pro, but there are other cons as well. So yeah, it is important that you should analyze how it is impacting.
Right.
Uh,
So,
quick, quick, quick
yeah.
question from Advocate Singh. Wanted to ask for high net worth individuals. I feel that, see, I think for the direct taxes, the the new slab, like you said, it's not beneficial for high net worth individual or people who maybe earn more than 30 lakhs a year. I
More than
suppose.
15 lakh
Uh,
as per the new slabs. More than
Right, right.
15
More
lakh
than
as per the
15
new
lakh.
slabs.
True,
Right,
true. Right, right. So it brings them to 30%, right? Or
right,
and or beyond
right,
15 lakh.
right.
Um, but but for high net worth individuals, what I feel like, and it's not a black and white question, right? Like, even though it is like, is it more beneficial for this category or that category? The way the question has been formed, it sounds black and white, but it is not black and white. Because I feel that high net worth individual always use the system and use the flaws in the system to make it beneficial for them, and you can always do that. So I don't know if that's possible. I think I heard someone, I read about someone who did something like that, where they started a registered company and then showed losses in business from
Right,
their income. So then they didn't have to pay
right,
taxes on that amount,
right.
right? So I think, even though the question sounds black and white, but don't you think a high net worth individual can always use the system for their advantage and pay less taxes?
See,
Like,
that
that's my
is always
question.
a possibility. Because see, if you are looking for loopholes in the system, whether it be judicial or taxing system, there will always be some loopholes you can use to your own benefit. But I guess for that you need to have a good CA and a good lawyer. I think you can get your way around it.
I think continuing with whatever Devendra was saying, Advocate Devendra, I think this is a general practice which you
Absolutely,
can see,
absolutely,
because if
absolutely,
you see the term sheet, that says something different, and if you see the balance sheet, which is generally published, that says a different story. Still, they get lots of investment. See, from a layman's perspective, let's suppose company A is losing money. Why would company B invest, right? They're still getting funds, and still at the end of the financial year, they're showing losses. So I think this should be scrutinized because we everyone knows that there are multiple loopholes. So yeah.
absolutely. But I think to add to Mr. Tiwari's opinion on this, I think there should be more transparency with the public about all the
Hmm.
taxing statements which are being put out by such companies who we are claiming or we have suspicions that are playing around with the loopholes of the tax system.
Right,
I think a
right.
little more transparency would really help.
Correct.
Exactly.
And how do you think that transparency can be brought about? Like,
I
what can
think
be
putting out
changed?
information on the public domain has to be there, and you have to make sure. See, these are very critical kind of information for a company or an individual to put all of their financial information, whether it be their company, whether it be their income, their expenses, their losses, their gains. These are very, if you talk about it, no one would be very comfortable to put out this information in the public domain. If I talk about it personally, if I take it on myself, if I have to publish all my financial information and statistics out in the public, I don't think I'll be very comfortable with it. But however, if I do, and understandably, there has to be an understanding in the public to get access to that knowledge. Now, see, we see a lot of data being put out in the public domain, but do we know or are we ourselves able to get access to it? That is also a problem we have to face.
Yeah. I think all the publicly listed companies have to do it. Like that's a
Absolutely, they
norm
have
for
to.
them, where they have to release their financials. But like we said, there's always a loophole in the system. They can show that we had a loss here or we reinvested the profits here, and that's why. I mean, that's how Amazon. Amazon is a good example that it was never in profits for like 15 years ever since it started. It recently got into profit because all the profits that they had, they would always show that we have reinvested in this
Yes.
initiative and that initiative, whereas the founder of the company is becoming a billionaire and the world's richest man, and still doesn't pay taxes, right? So that's, I think, that is the reason. As in, I feel that even though the tax regime has become simpler, and again, like I said, it has become simpler to understand for us, but we as a we as mid income group take the whole burden of a country like India, where like the population is so much, and probably 80% of people are dependent on government schemes for different things. So I think what needs to happen is we as a collective need to ask more questions, and be more aware as to see how that money is being used. Because like I said, I do not have a problem with upliftment of people who need it, but that upliftment has to happen through education, through employment opportunities, and not through giving free rice and giving free money in the accounts.
Right.
And that's not the way. And also, in a free market economy, it's not good for the economy as well, putting money in people's account. It's important to make people, uh, and I think that's where China has been a little different with their policies, I suppose. They also have pros and cons to their own system, but I think China as a system has been able to do what no other country has been able to do, and India is in a good position with the demographic dividend that we have right now, to utilize that. But yeah, coming from people's mid-income taxes, that's too much burden to put on one group of the country.
That is how the government in our state of Delhi is running, apparently.
So then I would like to then take this conversation, since we were talking about businesses and how taxes work with businesses. How do you think with the new tax regime, how does this benefit, or does it have any drawbacks for businesses? Do you think there are any negative points for small businesses or medium MSMEs?
I think I'm not sure about the impact as of now, what the new regime has made, but
Hmm.
you see, generally what has been happening is that the government's revenue, which is collected from taxes. So if you see the share, so their share from taxes is majorly from income tax, from middle income group basically, and that is not equally. I mean, it equally goes with corporate taxes. I think that is somewhere we can see that maybe corporate is getting benefited because the income to carry out your business for large businesses, I can say, of course, as I think you all can see, it is somewhat, I would say, having a positive impact to carry out big businesses in India.
See, when we talk about SMEs in our country, uh, I was recently working with a colleague of mine upon the same topic. So we discovered that all the SMEs which are having an annual turnover of up to 400 crore in our country are already enjoying a tax slab of 25%, and the new reforms are maintaining it. So I think the SMEs are already enjoying a positive outcome of the tax slabs, whether it be the new ones or the previous ones, because they have maintained it. We have to understand that the newer ones are increasing the spending capacity of the middle income earners. So if the disposable income, which I was making, which let's suppose was 50 rupees previously, now it is 70 rupees. So I have rupees 20 to spend extra just in case I'm not looking to invest it. We've already had a conversation whether if we invest that money and we have to pay capital gains on it. On the contrary, the other flip side of the coin is that if I spend it, whether it be on essential goods, it could be travel, it could be leisure, that is a benefit. And once a person having extra disposable income is spending it in the market is going to grow. It will help our economy. The financials of our economy will grow, the demand will grow, the labor will grow. It will also have a positive impact.
Right, that was a really good point made. And so coming to the capital gains that you were talking about, or from investments, um, with the new tax regime, there is a higher tax that has to be paid on any sort of gains that are made. Do you think that this is going to drive away investments and drive away people from investing, or what do you think? Generally, throwing it out to the entire panel.
See, in my opinion, the newer tax regime is not helping the high income owners. It is not helping them. And I think the negative impact it will have is it might derive the high income people, whether it be big companies, they might derive away from the Indian market, whether it be stock market, and they might look to invest their money in the foreign markets because they always have that option. They can relocate their assets abroad. So that is something which can impact our economy in the long run. That is what I feel.
Yeah, and I mean, see, I think someone who is a high net worth individual, someone who's making say beyond 15 lakh. I mean, first of all, that definition with the inflation of metro cities, I think the definition of high net worth individual needs to change. I think that needs to change. Someone above 15 lakh rupees with a family who has a kid who goes to school in a metro city, who pays rent or pays home EMI, should not be considered, should still be considered middle class, and not be considered a high net worth individual, given. And when the government says that the inflation is 5% or 4% or even 6% to say, but if in cities, we are in Pune right now, so in cities like Pune or in cities like Mumbai and Delhi, if you look at the school fees, private school fees year on year, it increases by 10%. If you look at your food prices, it increases by 10 to 12%. So everybody talks about inflation in 5-6%, and the government says it, and the media talks about it, but no one talks about segmental
Right.
inflation. That we living in metros and cities of India, our inflation is probably 15-16%. If if someone calculates it properly, and someone living in a village, probably their inflation is 4-5%, and that's what on an average brings about to 6%. So then you're paying taxes. If you earn more than 15 lakh, probably close to 30 to 40% of taxes you're paying. And then your inflation is so high, your segmental inflation is so high. And then when you're investing your savings, and say on an average, if you get 12 to 13% on that, you're paying 20% tax if it's short term, and if it's long term, then you're paying 12.5% tax. So think about those individuals. Plus, let's talk about indirect taxes. Say I'm a high net worth individual, and tomorrow I want to buy a luxury car, an SUV. My indirect taxes is also high, because because someone who earns so much would want to drive a nice car, right? And then on luxury items, the indirect taxes are also so high. So then probably 60-70% of my earning is, uh, I'm working to give 60-70% of my earning to the
Absolutely.
government, right? That's what I'm working for. So yeah, like I said, these giving disposable income to uh, middle class is extremely important. I think budget is less than a month away, and I think we have seen in the last. I keep reading about the macroeconomic situation all over the world, and we have seen how much money has gone out of India in the past few months, last 2-3 months. Like the foreign institutional investors have taken a lot of money out of Indian markets, and they're going to dollars because dollar is getting stronger. The U.S. Bond market, the U.S. bond market is giving higher yield than the Indian market. So imagine, if I'm an institutional investor from the US, and I put my money in India, the value of my money is dropping by 5% year on year, because rupee is falling against dollars, right? So that 5% of premium I'm losing. So if in India, even if it gives 15%, the net result is 10, because I'm putting in dollars and the value of dollar is falling in India, right? At the same time, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but at the same time, um, you know our we who live in India and earn in rupee, our inflation is getting high because India is a net importer and not a net exporter. So the oil that is being imported, India is paying in dollars and paying a higher amount in dollars, and the conversion in rupee is becoming more and more for us because rupee is falling. So then, I mean, there's no the opportunity of growth is not so much. In a few years down the line, 5 years down the line, I feel like even the middle income earners in cities would feel like they are below poverty level. How things are going, if that's how, if the status quo remains.
You know,
I totally agree. Yeah, yeah, please, please.
I'm really sorry. Touching
No,
back
no,
to the
no.
point wherein we were talking about the high income sector people and their investments being driven away from our country. There's a very basic example. See, we talk about Ambanis and Adanis all day long and we criticize them. But we have to, not only us, it's the Indian government, the taxing system they have to look into account as a person or a company or an institution which is generating a revenue of 5,000 crores annually living in India. They pay taxes on their gains, right? Now, if they have 500 crore rupees to invest annually, right? If they're investing that 500 crore rupees and paying a 20% tax on it, it amounts to 100 crores. 100 crores might not be a very big figure to them, but it is a very big figure for our country's economy. Because if that 100 crore being taken away, for example, if X person is making 500 crore rupees profit, he wants to invest it. He looks at the tax regime in India and he's driven away. He looks for a market probably in the Middle East in Dubai. The United Arab Emirates is imposing 0% tax on anything and everything, all the income you're generating. They'll take their investments over there. Not only is it a foreign market opportunity, but they're also getting the benefit of taxes. He will invest there annually. He will save 100 crore rupees. He's making that money, but the loss is for the people of India. government has to take in account that the 100 crore rupee possible revenue which could come in and help our society, help our government take care of the, whether it be welfare of the society, whether it be for hospitals, for roads, or whatever it might be. But that 100 crore rupees be very vital. So we have to look into account that we don't, you know, make such laws that all our big money players are going out of India and their money is being taken back from India and foreign market is enjoying the benefit out of it. That is a very important point.
Uh,
Uh, I think what you're saying is right, sir. But I was reading this article recently where I read about how the corporate earning in the last time this new tax regime was brought about, the corporate tax was reduced. And like we have been saying that the tax for high net worth individual was increased in the new tax slabs, but the corporate tax were reduced. That this government had cut, but and that was cut so that the corporates could reinvest
Right,
in India. And in the last 3 years, I think some data I was reading, in the last 3 years, not only has the FDI foreign direct investments in India is at the lowest that it has been in the last 10 years, but the Indian companies are also not reinvesting in India. So, they are not giving salary hikes, they are not reinvesting for growth in India. In fact, a lot of our own companies have chosen to reinvest their money outside India,
right,
which is very interesting. So I think it comes back to a place where till the time the government uses the tax money in education, in skilling the people, there wouldn't be enough for any company to invest in India, because that's what it because how China has become China is through manufacturing, right? How India has become India is through IT, through individuals who studied and who could speak in English and who had engineering skills and who had different skills. And we are the service capital of the world. China is the manufacturing capital of the world. And with automation, China will still remain to be the manufacturing capital of the world. But what India can do is, skill its people, educate its people, and continue to be the service capital of the world. And that's where, I think that's where the gap is for the last 5-10 years, I would suppose.
I'd say when I mean uh, the question was asked whether the new tax system or the new changes, is it making investment unattractive? I would say yes, because after the changes, if we can see, the capital gains tax are extremely higher. Even for the foreign investors, they need to pay higher tax. So, as I mean, Anurag was saying, it completely justifies that we are not getting FDI because we are not. I mean, our tax system for even for them, for foreign investors, are high, and we have also removed indexation of benefits. So the real estate sales depends on that, and it might impact real estate as well. So ultimately, if the tax, I mean, these tax changes are surely unattractive.
Yeah. And it is definitely, most people in India, they do not buy real estate, or they do not buy homes to
Right.
flip it, right? Like, that thing is
Yeah.
not common in. If you buy a home now, and if you say I'm flipping it in a year for 20%, 30% profit, your parents will, or I mean, people will look down upon you, right? That's not something we do here in India. But uh, the taxation that has been brought about, it has become beneficial for people who want to flip. So you buy something and you flip it tomorrow, pay your short term capital gains, and then that's how you are able to make money. But we as buying homes or buying real estate is mostly an emotional decision, and most people would want to buy a new house, right, or a new piece of property, and not a used one. So then you can't even flip it to your advantage. Like, that's not the market we are in. So then yeah, it's this tax just doesn't make sense. And removing
Yes.
indexation benefit is,
And
yeah, like, it has basically killed middle
yes.
class aspiration to own a home, and then say that okay, my home is this much amount, I bought it for this much, and in 20 years time it became this much. So that whole thing is gone now.
On that note, I think we can also take audience questions now. So, the first question which I would like the panel to address is, with reports indicating significant GST evasion cases, do you think the middle class is being treated unfairly, bearing the fiscal burden due to the widespread tax evasion by other, probably businesses or high net individuals?
See,
Advocate Devendra, if you would
when
like.
we talk, yes, when we talk about tax evasion, whether it be GST, whether it be income tax, we have to understand that in our country, let's not go outside and how the salaries are being drawn in foreign countries, in the Western countries. How much is the percentage of people who are earning their salaries, who are working for a salaried company and their salary comes straight into their accounts? First, we have to take in account the percentage of that part of our society. See, that is the whatever percentage we get, it is in the minority. We all know that. That is the part of the society you can curb and control and monitor because you know everything is coming into your account. You can keep a check how much taxes are being paid accordingly. But in case we have to look into the other majority part of our society, whether it be 80%, 90%, 70%, I don't know. It is close to that. How do you monitor people who are making their daily wages in cash? Now, daily wage can be 500 rupees, it could be 5,000 rupees. It is not about being a daily wage, but it is about the salaries they are earning, the money they are earning, which is coming in cash. We have to find a way in our system to set up a way to monitor them so that we can not only monitor it, but we can take actions against people who are doing such evasions, who are not declaring their proper income. I think India is one of the countries with the least percentage of citizens contributing to the income tax. I think it's close to 3 to 4%, if I'm not wrong. And 3 to 4% of a population we have.
It's
Yeah,
even
I think
less
it's
than
less than 3 4%. Yeah.
it's even less
So
than that.
if
Yeah,
as a whole you talk about
yeah,
India
yeah.
being the biggest, democracy of the world in the population we have, 3 to 4% is a very, very, very small percentage of the society. We have to find a way to take into account the rest 96, 97, whatever percentage there is, right? But for that, we have to develop a
Uh,
system to monitor the income people are getting in cash.
See, I think the question of GST evasion, I don't think it's such a big factor because most of India is like Sir was saying, most of India works in informal sectors. So all mostly businesses are very informal. They are not organized and formalized, right? So when I go to a local jeweler as a customer to buy a gold ring, I if I ask for a GST bill, I am the one who will have to pay the GST as a customer, right? So then I don't ask for GST bill. I pay for the gold ring in cash, and the person is not collecting GST in the first place. So most of the informal economy in India is not collecting GST in the first place. It's not that they are collecting GST and then they are evading that. So that's what is GST evasion, right? But and if someone is collecting GST and evading, I don't think there are a lot of cases like that because now the government has mechanism where they can catch them. My problem is where the second part of question, when it says, is the middle class unfairly being bearing the fiscal burden due to widespread tax evasion? Yes, the answer is yes to the second part. And the reason is not GST evasion. The reason is the pool of middle class is so small. We are minority. The pool of middle class is so small in India. So the government needs to focus on increasing the pool of middle class. There's one class who's not capable of paying tax at all. There's one class who is capable of paying tax and a lot of tax, but they can play with the system. And the middle class is very, very small. So that is the reason the burden comes on middle class. So the focus has to go on increasing the pool of middle class. And that's when it won't feel unfair.
Right.
I totally agree with Anurag. And So the other day I was going through some stats. So regarding this GST evasion, I mean, it was shocking that there were not much cases, as Anurag was saying, but the amount which was shocking is of around 24 to 25 billion dollars. So I think this amount, some if you see, there are not many industries which have this much of, I would say, growth or possibility in future. But the evasion which is going on, I would say, is a lot. Maybe the cases are less, but is a lot. And yes, as Anurag was saying, appropriately, it is extremely correct that the pool is less. And the government, I don't know how they think that maybe changes in tax might increase the pool, but I think they are just focusing on. I mean, it is very clear that the revenue generation for government is increasing. I don't know about the middle class, but yeah.
I think if there can,
Yeah, the GST collection and the income tax collection in the past 2 years. Sorry, sir, continue. Yeah.
yeah, I was just saying that if somehow we can manage to strengthen the enforcement and the adoption of advanced technology for e-GST filing, and because see, GST filing is something which is known to everyone, but is it known the procedure? We know the phenomenon, but do we know the process? How many people over here know how to file GST online? That is also a problem, I feel. You know the phenomena, but you don't know the process. That is something which is concerning. Half of the shopkeepers, if I go out and have a conversation with them, if I ask them what is GST, they'll be able to answer it. But if I ask them, do you know how to file it, they will have the answer saying no. So that is something we need to look upon and educate people on it.
Also, India's GST is the most complicated GST in the
i'm
world.
sure
You
i'm
know
sure i'm sure
I think
that.
that is the
Yeah,
reason
it's
shopkeepers maybe are not interested to get into it.
Probably one more thing we
yeah,
can
yeah.
do is,
It's. I
I
think
think,
that.
I'm really sorry, I'm continuing in between, but I think one thing our government should also look upon is providing incentives to people who are filing their GST in time. Maybe some benefits to be given to the markets, whether it be suppliers, whether it be people who are, working in shops or running businesses. I think some kind of incentive, it might not be monetary, but some kind of incentive may draw them towards, regular filing of GST. And that can be very beneficial because at the end of the day, most of our Indian society is looking for benefits.
True, I totally agree.
So
Even
yeah, so if
for
they
the
get it,
taxes which are paying, we should get that much quality.
right. It does not have to be, monetary, but you have to
Yes,
come up with
no, no,
something to appreciate
exactly.
people basically.
So with that, I'm also going to take you to a similar question where someone's asking how transparent is the government in utilizing tax revenue, and does this affect public perception of fairness? So
I really think this is a question which will irk a lot of people associated to political parties, especially in Delhi with the elections coming up. See, the issue is we talk about transparency from the companies in their GST filings. We talk about transparency in people, people and companies' data, financial data is being put out in the public domain. But if we put the same question to the government in utilizing of tax revenue and putting out the data in the public domain with proper transparency, I do not think it will be happening anytime soon. And it correlates to people's perception of fairness. See, if you go down to the street and ask people how fair is your government in utilizing the taxes which the citizens are paying, you're not going to have very good answers. People will scrutinize the government. People will object to their reforms. People will object to the political parties' expenditures being done at the time of elections. So it is very easy to determine that the taxes which the citizens of a country are paying, whether it be 3%, 4%, I think there should be little more transparency with the governments putting out all the data of the expenditure they're doing, not only the expenditure, but also the stats of the data relating to the money they have collected with taxes. When we talk about fiscal deficit, that is the only way when the government is putting out the money which has come in, the money which has gone out. If the transparency is there, I think people will have a lot more trust in the government also. And it will encourage them to pay taxes also, right?
For me, I think for this question, again, the answer is both yes and no. the transparency, the budget that is going to be presented in less than a month's time. Budget by itself means transparency. By itself, it means that this is how much we earned, this is where that money came from, and this is where we are planning to spend it. So that's transparency for you. However, how much of that is done is the question, because every year, so I think every year that the budget is presented, what I do personally is I look back at the budget that was presented last year, and the year before, and the year before. It stays in news for a month, and none of those most of those things just don't happen. If you look at the number of announcements that the government does, and see, there are so many government policies that are very interesting, that are very uplifting in nature. But if you see how much money has been spent towards those, they are zero. A lot of times, the schemes that you hear about, that the most noise is made about, most of those schemes budgets are spent on advertisements. Good example, there are a lot of good examples, like things like Make in India, things like the vaccine, during COVID. If you file an RTI and ask, which a lot of people do, the response would come that 90% of the budget that was spent on advertising, and the remaining was not spent at all. And then I think most of the money goes towards uh, uh, you know uh, uh, I think bureaucracy is what is killing a lot of our efficiency in terms of utilizing the money for the government, because uh, people get I'm not saying people shouldn't get pension, but probably politicians shouldn't get pension, 90-year-old politician who was in parliament 50 years ago should not get politician, because uh, being a politician by itself, the reason why it doesn't have any educational qualification, there is no bar to become a politician, because India is a democracy, right? So then it's your choice. You are going there for public's welfare, you're not going there
Benefit
to
yourself.
earn uh, you know earn a benefit for life. But I think that's what happens, and a lot of money that is utilized, I think there's a lack of efficiency. And also in terms of transparency, it's government, they can always manipulate the data, right? There are a lot of examples where the government just manipulates the data and gives you a number. Inflation is an example. Then recently, I think it was last year that the central government changed the way they measure their road construction. So before that, by 2023, the rule was that if you're building a 4-lane road and you're building it for a kilometer, you can say that we built 1 kilometer of road. But recently, last year, they changed their data rule and said that if it's 4-lane, we'll report it as 4 kilometers of road. So then obviously it'll become a record length of road that you've built. In the history of this India, you will become the government that has built the longest amount of road all across India. So that's how they manipulate the data. So then that's the answer to transparency.
I think data
Uh,
manipulation is a big concern in our country,
right,
in
right.
every sector, I would say.
As Anurag was saying that majorly the money is being spent for marketing, and that I think the remaining part was how our ministers are traveling. So they spend most of that in that where they are living, their residence, maybe for tea and snacks, they're spending over lakhs. So I think that is the main reason why government can't be transparent. So, yeah.
Right. I believe we've had a very fruitful and very interesting conversation today. So, I would like to end this discussion by throwing out a question to all the panelists, which could be like your closing statement also. What do you think is the future of this new tax regime? How do you see this going ahead for our country, for the country's economy? Anyone can go ahead first.
I think last month the discussion was going on. I don't know whether it's a rumor or not, that the government is still, I might take a decision on income group regarding the tax slab for people under, or maybe up to 15 lakhs. We understand we are a developing nation, so we would be trying and try and test things, but it, as we can see, it has impacted a lot. It's not that it is still in the process. It came out, it impacted. We can see the problems which citizens are facing, which especially the taxpayers are facing. So it is important that the government should keep it dynamic rather than making it look like an order. That it should, I think, change. They have better, I think, expert panelists to discuss what the problems are going on. So I think problems would be there, no doubt in that. But if it's impacting your economy, as Anurag was mentioning, it has impacted our FDI, right? So I think that is concerning. So yeah.
Yeah. See, I think when we talk about
Uh,
taxes, the new regime, the previous one, as we had a discussion about the GST and tax evasion also. See, I believe that government, come what may, they will always be under scrutiny. You cannot satisfy the world's biggest democracy. Each and every person cannot be pleased with your policies. There will always be a section of the society which will always criticize you and call you out for certain problems. But I think in the bigger picture, the best way moving forward for our government should be to firstly create some transparency in everything, whether it be on their own end or the consumer's end. Transparency is something which might not benefit you financially, but the trust factor it will bring in is very important. See, if you can gain the trust of your citizens by, you know, anything, whether it be transparency on your own end about the expenditures you're doing, how you're using the tax money, it will encourage the people of a country to, like, probably move towards paying taxes for people who are right now not doing it. There is a larger part of a society who is not paying the taxes. You need to bring in some transparency to encourage them. That is the only way your finances will go better, the economy will grow. Secondly, I think our government should also consider public opinion. It should not be, as Mr. Tiwari said, it should not be an order. We're not standing where we are directed to do something. I think suggestions should be welcomed. There are many countries I will not name where suggestions are taken from the public. A suggestion box is put out in a public domain where they take suggestions from the country's people that how do you want to do us in terms of taxes, in terms of budgets, how should we move on. I think that should be there. See, it is the prerogative of the government to use the opinions, use the suggestions. It is not mandatory, but at least you could take it. It might give a good image, not only for the government, but the people will also feel that they have contributed somehow, right? And lastly, you have to give some incentives to people to encourage them, to reward them. And as I said, it does not have to be monetary. It could be in any other form also, but something has to be given because from what I know, the people of our country, if you reward them, they will come to you. So if that is a technique we can use, I think it will reap good awards and will be very beneficial for our economy and the finances.
uh, my closing statement would be that I think we need to increase. I think the middle class is in minority in our country. Middle class is the biggest minority, and they are taking burden of direct and indirect taxes a lot. So, and India is probably the only country which taxes us so much directly and indirectly. And so I would say give more disposable income to the middle class. We are a minority for the political class, but I think it's high time that the middle class gets some benefit from the budget, and gets more disposable income, and that would allow, the engine of economy will allow inflows of capital in the system through spending, because the middle class will spend, go out, and in a free market economy, when the government is focusing on privatization, they are themselves privatizing. I think over the years, Right now, there's only railway, which is still controlled by the government, and then probably there's ONGC, and everything else they have been privatizing over the years. So then, if you're privatizing, then allow the free market to flow, allow the free market to make the decision, collect your indirect taxes, which are already very high in India, and probably abolish the direct taxes. It's an extreme step, but yeah.
Right. Thank you so much again to all the panelists for their views, and thank you to our viewers for joining in. Today's discussion shed a light on the intricate dynamics of India's tax system and its impact on businesses and individuals alike. Our esteemed panel shared some invaluable insights, highlighting the need for reforms that balance fairness, efficiency, and growth. As we wrap up, one thing is clear: building a tax system that truly serves everyone requires collaboration, transparency, and forward thinking policies. Together, let's continue the dialogue and work toward a more just and equitable tax structure for all. Thank you for joining us again, and special thanks to all the panelists for their expertise and perspectives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.